Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me is not Mark Souza. He's actually sick today. He will be back tomorrow. Hopefully, he feels better. But we have a lot to talk about still in the world of basketball. We got a Turkey government versus an NBA player in Kanter for the Knicks. We'll talk about that first. But then we'll talk about the Golden State Warriors versus the Denver Nuggets and what that has resulted into for the future. And then we round up the rest of the NBA, and anything else we need to talk about, we will talk about. But first, Kanter in a little bit of hot water right now, as the Turkish government have put asked for an international warrant on the arrest of Kanter, as he is accused of being in a terrorist group that was at a failed coup of the government. First of all, whoa, that's a stretch. Apparently there's some hate going on, and with the government and attacking an NBA basketball player, there's obviously things that are putting these two at odds. Like he's not going to London with the Knicks game for the Knicks because of the fact he's fearing his life, and that's awful. That's truly awful. And he's also again, he is being asked for an international. Turkey is asking for an international warrant of his arrest. That is a whole new level of this. This is a little bigger than most people are taking care for. It was since May of 2017. He posted on Twitter a video of him being detained at the Romania airport, and he was posting a video on Twitter calling the president of Turkey the Hitler of our century. And as a Jewish man myself, I'm thinking, whoa, that's hitting a hard place right there. That is, especially in Europe, that's a touchy subject, no doubt about it. And calling the president, that's like basically calling President Trump the Hitler of our century, that is insane. And he had his Turkish passport revoked due to these, all this stuff that's been going on since that time in May in 2017. And it's been almost 2 years now. It's been a year and a half, roughly, since that happened. And he's still being looked at by the Turkey government as this anti-Turkey guy. I don't know how to describe this. Well, a terrorist. Perfect example. He's considered a terrorist by the government. He was alleged part of this terror organization that tried to do a coup of the government, and they failed at it. And he was supposedly a part of this terrorist organization. Wow, that is I understand it's a strong word, but I know he doesn't like the government. I think they're using that as a evidence, quote unquote, of saying he's part of this organization. That's the best I can think of. Actually, on Twitter, he posted very recently, on January 16th, which is today at 6:02 a.m., the Turkish government cannot present any single piece of evidence of my wrongdoing. I don't even have a parking ticket in the United States, with the crying laughing emoji. I've always been a law-abiding citizen, and then he puts the emoji with the angel, with the halo over the head. So I thought that was pretty funny. And obviously, he is defending himself and saying, there's no evidence whatsoever that I'm part of this terrorist organization against the Turkish government. And so I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, he's not going to London. He's already said he's not going because of what's going on right now with the Turkish government. And I get that. I would be like a little hesitant to go to Europe as well. He's still fearing his life. Apparently, he's received death threats due to these comments on Twitter. And that's too much. Like, if in his mind, why would you? If you're in his shoes, would you even go either way? No, absolutely not. And it's going to be, well, obviously he's a big factor for the Knicks team. He's a great rebounder. Like, we're good on the defensive end. He can score the points on the offensive end. And like I said, he is the key rebounder for that Knicks team. And that's why, like, there's rumors of Sacramento Kings going for that trade because of the fact they need help on the rebound side, and he gets those rebounds harder than anyone else on that Knicks team. And without him on that Knicks team in London, I think that's a big deficit for him in going into that game for the Knicks, that is. But how I see this going down is, I think this is hopefully, well, it's been almost 2 years. I'm hoping this will blow over, but I'm not sure if I don't think he's going to get arrested. I don't think any of that's going to happen. I don't think like he said, Kanter is quoted on his Twitter saying there's not any evidence that I'm part of this terrorist organization. First of all, he's on an NBA basketball team, so I don't think he has time for a terrorist organization, but I could be wrong. But I think this is obviously big news just because of how serious the situation is getting, to a point where an NBA player is being accused of being part of a terrorist organization. I don't think that's ever happened before. I don't think any NBA player, I could be totally wrong, but I don't think any NBA player in the history of the league has ever been accused of being part of a terrorist organization, trying to overthrow a government. That's a first for me. That's the first I've heard about this. First I've ever, no, not heard, but first this has ever happened in my lifetime for sure. In our lifetime, absolutely. It's just crazy to think about what escalation this has risen to since of May of 2017. And as for the Knicks, they're one of the this is not really a thing the Knicks need right now because of the fact they're one of the worst teams in the NBA, and they are third to last in the East at 10-33. They've lost 4 straight. They're only in front of the Bulls, who have lost 8 straight, but they have same number of wins. The Bulls have 10 wins. Knicks have 10 wins. Fortunately for the Knicks, they have 1 loss less than the Bulls at 33-34. And then behind them, of course, is Cleveland at 9-35. And that was expected after the loss to LeBron James. But obviously, the Knicks are not fighting for a playoff spot. They're not fighting for any postseason hopefuls. I think they're just looking at a lottery pick, hopefully to boost up with Porzingis. If Kanter's still there, who knows where he's going to be by next season. But the fact is, the Knicks, just their season's going from bad to worse. Not only the season of wins and the win-loss record they got and the losing streak they're currently on, but the fact is one of their players is being accused of being a terrorist. That is, whoa, that's a pretty disappointing. That's probably as worst as you can get. I mean, the worst. I can't think of anything else unless there's actually evidence. There's no evidence of it as of right now publicly. But if there was, wow, this would make it worse. So that's what's going down in New York for the Knicks. And now my question is, if you're the New York Knicks, do you defend Kanter? Do you say we're on his side? Or do you trade him? Or do you release him not to have any of this controversy around you? Because there was talks about Kanter trading to the Sacramento Kings for, I believe it was Zach Randolph in a trade. Because of two contracts, both are expiring contracts, and it just benefiting both teams, I guess. And one is fighting for a playoff, the other is not. So what I'm saying is, I don't know what I do if I'm the New York Knicks. Obviously, he's a big factor on our team. He's a great rebounder, huge addition to the team. But what do you do? That's a big question mark for me. I don't know what you do. it's one of these things in where you got to look at the fact that Kanter is in hot water right now. Boiling water. The water's on fire. That's what's going on for Kanter right now. The water is literally on fire. Like, he's in a boiling pot, and it's on fire, and he's trying to get out. And with this, I think that I'm hoping this will blow over. I'm hoping this isn't going to escalate to anything even worse. I hope this doesn't lead to like an arrest, him going to Turkish prison or anything, because I don't know what happens over there. I hope those death threats are not gonna basically, the death threats at Kanter are not gonna be fulfilled. That's my hope, at least. But I digress. I can't think of anything else that could be a big factor of this. It's just a huge, like, whoa, this is a whole different ballgame of, this isn't even just about the NBA anymore. This is about a whole nother government asking for the arrest of a man who got his passport revoked and is playing in the NBA, and it's not his game. It's not his game that's being the big news here. It's not even like a criminal record. It's the government accusing him of something. And like he said, if he actually doesn't have a ticket in the United States, that really more boosts in his favor of who's right and who's wrong situation. You could have no tickets and still be a criminal. Like, that's not. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the fact is, we don't know who's in the right and who's in the wrong. Obviously, people are going to defend Kanter because of the fact that this seems over the top from the Turkish government, no doubt about it. But again, it's such a touchy subject in where you don't know what's really going on. Obviously, Kanter said hurtful things about the president, saying that's very escalating to the fact that he's called him Hitler. And I think that was, like, regardless of who you're talking about, I think that's over the top, unless he's actually doing something like the Holocaust. But obviously, I don't believe he is. I think we would hear about it in the media, obviously. But I think the fact of the matter is, we are in a very touchy subject when it comes to Kanter versus the Turkish government. And maybe this will blow over, but I think this will be the sub-story for the New York Knicks' entire season until this completely blows over. And so we'll see how that happens. But we are going to take a short break. We're going to be done with all that government talk. When we come back, we'll be talking about the Golden State Warriors and their statement win over the Denver Nuggets, and we'll get right on that when we return.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We just finished talking about Kanter and his issues with the Turkey government. Now we're moving on to actual NBA news. NBA scoring news, I guess how you can say. Yesterday we had one of the most crucial games of the NBA season so far, and halfway through the season. We had the first place Denver Nuggets versus the second place Golden State Warriors. I guess winner would be first, loser would be second. And we all expected some sort of close game. We expected a defensive effort from Denver. We expected a lot of scoring and seeing who would be the better team. However, we saw an NBA record 51 points in the first quarter from the Golden State Warriors against the Denver Nuggets, who are known for their pretty darn good defense, all things considered. And Curry shooting from what feels like he can shoot from legitimately the top of the stadium into the basket. He could shoot like a 10 full court shot without trying, because it felt like he was shooting that much. The length of his shots were absolutely ridiculous. There were two guys with 31 points, and that was Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. Durant had 27 of his own. Curry went 8 of 13 from beyond the arc. Thompson went 5 of 8, and Durant went 5 of 7. Even Draymond Green got into the three-point shooting. He went 1 of 2. He only had 4 points with 1 free throw, but he still made a 3 himself. And it's truly remarkable. Draymond Green had 13 assists. He was basically the point guard, and Curry was basically the shooting guard, just draining threes left and right. Thompson also draining threes. But this game was a statement win, definitely for the Golden State Warriors. The Denver Nuggets, the Joker himself, Jokic, he had 40 and 10 last game. He has 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 8 assists this game. That is a steep drop, who many would even consider putting in the voting for the MVP of this season. And I would too. He's been playing absolutely great. He's been leading the Nuggets to a great season that no one expected. So, seeing the Denver Nuggets look like, well, the Nuggets of old, like mediocre. Like, no one thought about the Nuggets as a top-tier team going into the season. Nobody. But right now, they're 29 and 14. They were 29 and 13 versus the 30 and 14 Warriors, And this made them look like this halfway through the season that they're starting to cool off. The Warriors are on a 5-game winning streak. They're on top of the West yet again at 30 and 14. Denver drops to number 2. They still have a 3-game lead over Oklahoma City for that second place. Oklahoma has 26 wins. Denver has 29 wins. But the fact remains, if this continues, this effort, this game like this continues against the Rockets, or I'm just using random teams as an example, who they're going to play in the future, but it's definitely a cause for concern if you're the Denver Nuggets. They play the Bulls tomorrow. They lose that game, that's a big worry in my opinion. But after that, they go on Saturday to play the Cavs. They have a pretty easy schedule coming after this pretty disappointing game. They got the Bulls, then they got the Cavs. Then they go and play the Jazz, which is probably their toughest thing in the next week or so. But what I'm seeing here is they have a pretty light schedule going in the next week. They play 3 of the worst teams in the NBA. The Bulls, the Cavs, and then they play the Suns on Friday. That's a pretty light schedule. They play the Jazz on Wednesday, but three of the worst teams in the NBA, you're facing them in 1 week span. That's a very generous schedule, if you ask me. But I think their first game that they need to make a statement win on is not those 3 teams, is not the Jazz, but they play the 76ers on next Saturday. That game, I feel like if they win that one handily, then we'll say maybe this wasn't a fluke of them momentum of how good they are in the West. They are still a top contender in the West. But if they lose these games against the Bulls or Cavs, they lose just one of them. They lose the Cavs, or they lose to the Suns. I'm not going to say Jazz because Jazz are starting to heat up again. But if they lose to one of the 3 worst teams in the NBA, Bulls, Cavs, or Suns, I will definitely say it might be time for panic mode. Because that's not a good sign. Getting destroyed by the best team of the NBA and then losing to one of the worst teams in the NBA, just one of them. I think that's a cause for concern. When they play Utah on Wednesday, Utah's on a 4-game winning streak. So I'm not going to say, oh, they're trash now. Because Utah, they started off pretty slow, but now they're getting momentum again. Me and Mark both were talking about how this team might be, the Jazz at least, top 5 in the conference. Obviously, that didn't happen at the start of the season, but now we're past the halfway mark and they're starting to heat up again. They're right behind the Lakers at the 10th seed, so it's still a possibility. They can edge their way into the playoffs, of course, and make a run. Because, honestly, the team Utah has can still be a dangerous team. Donovan Mitchell still can be dangerous in the playoffs. Why not, right? But looking at the Nuggets, definitely this game has me thinking, are they as good as advertised? Or is it a easy schedule? I've known they've won big games in the past, but this game really worries me on the count of the fact of the matter is, like, this is not like something you just sweep under the rug. 51 points in the first quarter is an NBA record against a team that's supposed to be elite. I mean, they've beaten the Thunder before. I believe they even beaten the Warriors before. They have. And they've beaten the Raptors, the number one team in the East. And you're saying, oh, it's the East. I get that. But the East, the Raptors are really good. And how often they've been playing these games and winning them. Some handily, some not. I get that. But the fact still remains that the Nuggets have been one of the hottest teams in basketball. And the fact is they haven't been this routed. Like, they haven't been this dominated all season. And I think that this possibly could be a downfall once it comes down to it. I hope it's not, because it's nice to see, it's refreshing to see a team like this, a new team, be up in the top 3 in the West. Because usually we're used to the Rockets, or we're used to the Thunder, or so on and so forth. Or even the Spurs, for that matter, before they lost Kawhi. But I will say that over this, like, since the beginning of, let's say, January 1st. Let's go to that January. They beat the Knicks. Wow. They beat the Knicks on January 1st. Then they went then they went to the next game against the Kings on the 3rd and won the game by 4. But the Kings have been actually a very competitive team, so I'm not going to down them on that one. Then they went on to face the Hornets, and they won that game 123-110 on the 5th of January. And we're just going through this month of January just to see what their run has been like. Then they lost to the Rockets on the 7th. 125-113. Another kind of handled victory. No cause for concern there. They came back and won 103-99 against a very talented Heat team. I think they're talented. You could disagree with me, but I think they still have talent to be in the playoffs. And not just Dwayne Wade, but just that team is young, and I think they have a lot of bright future ahead of them with draft picks. I think they're going to be great. Then they beat a hot Clippers team on the 10th. And going into the next game they had on the 12th, they lost to the Suns 102-93. And people kind of were like, whoa, hold on. The last team in the West beat the best team in the West. That's kind of unusual. But any team going in any night, maybe that was a fluke. Then they went on and beat the Blazers, who was kind of on a lull on the 13th. And then you look like going into then yesterday, they lost handily. So they've had kind of an up and down kind of month. And the Warriors have taken that advantage of that and taken the first place team. But I'm not going to say pull the alarm, get everyone out of the building yet for the Nuggets. Still got a lot of faith in them. They're still a very talented team. The Joker has been laughing up a bunch. I love that nickname, so I try to make it clever. Maybe we make it. It's obviously a Batman reference, but I'm trying to think of anything clever. I guess the Warriors were Batman this time, or the Bat family. They had Red Hood and Robin, Damian Wayne, the son of Batman. They had Batwoman. There's actually a Batwoman. People don't really know that. Fun fact. Anyways, there's also Batgirl, who's kind of Oracle Nebula. She got paralyzed. Okay, I'm getting off topic. Anyways, looking at the Nuggets' future, though, like I said, they're playing some bad teams. Their schedule looks pretty good the next week or so. When they play the 76ers next Saturday, that is a game they need to win to convince most of the league that they are still contenders for the top seed in the West. That's my honest opinion. Because I like the Nuggets. I really do. And I think a lot of people like this Nuggets team because they came out of nowhere. And it's refreshing to see a team other than the Warriors in first place, or other than the Rockets in first place, or other than the teams we've seen in the first place for the last 5-6 years. And some people were saying, wow, this team can actually maybe handle the Warriors in a 7-game series. Not handle them, like destroy them, but like take them to 6-7 games. Maybe an upset. But now we look at it like the Warriors would destroy them. And now we're going back to the soul-crushing, maybe not soul-crushing, but we're going the same status quo of the Warriors being this dominant juggernaut of a team. And now still favorites even more now to win the NBA Finals for a third straight time, do a three-peat for the first time since Shaq and Kobe did it in 2000, 2001, 2002. Yes, that's right. Because they lost in 2003. Yes, because the Spurs went to the Finals in 2003, and in 2004 they went back and lost to the Pistons. Yes, I'm right. Because Kobe only won that three-peat, and then he went on to win the 2 championships in 2009, 2010. So yes, that three-peat from Shaq and Kobe was the last time that there was a three-peat. So it's been almost 20 years, about 2 decades since we've seen a three-peat. We've seen the Heat go back-to-back with LeBron. That was the closest we've seen to a three-peat. They went back to the finals and lost. So we've seen close times someone go to the finals. I mean, LeBron's still on his final streak. Is he going to continue it? Probably not, because he's on the West against the Warriors. But I can see the Nuggets as a series. Like, I would love to see them in the Western Conference Finals against the Warriors. I would love to see that series. Because it would be 2 seed versus 1 seed if it ended today. But again, this is all theory-based, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes out for both the Nuggets and the Warriors. I think we all know how the Warriors will end the season. At least second, I'm guessing. I think that's a fair assumption. I'm going at least second, just to be safe, not say guaranteed first. I mean, what if I'm wrong, you know? But anyways, I do have to say the fact that the Nuggets took a big loss. I mean, 51 points in the first quarter, my goodness. But they need to bounce back. But we will bounce back from a short break. When we get back, we'll take the round of the rest of the NBA that's happened in the last 24 hours, each game, and how each team's doing. And we'll look at the entire conference rankings, the conference standings, excuse me. And we'll be right back right after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We just talked about the Nuggets being handled, destroyed, you can say, by the Golden State Warriors after a 51-point force. I still can't get up. 51 points in the first quarter. That's insane. Anyways, moving on, we got the rest of the games to talk about from yesterday as well as Monday. Well, actually, we don't talk about Monday, do we? No, we don't. We already talked that on Tuesday. I kid. Anyways, so yesterday's games, we had the Bulls and the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers are coming off a pretty disappointing run without LeBron. People are debating if he's going to stay out longer because of his groin injury. We talked about this yesterday on the podcast. A serious concern for the Lakers if LeBron has a torn groin, because he's been out for quite some time, since Christmas Day, in fact. So a serious concern definitely for that team. But they handled the Bulls, 107-100. Kuzma was 16-12, a double-double for him. Lonzo Ball had 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. A pretty good day for him. Hart off the bench, 22 minutes, but only 2 points. Pretty disappointing. JaVale McGee had 9 points off the bench. And that's about the main two I want to talk about on the bench. And but Lonzo Ball hit 3 3-pointers. Took 7 attempts, but still 3 3-pointers. He hit the most threes of anyone on the team, which is, I don't know if that's a good sign for Ball or a bad sign for the rest of the team. But it's really insane to think 107-100 is a low-scoring game. No one had above 20 points on either side of the ball. No one combined. No one together. The closest was 19 from Ball. But no one had above 20 points. 20 or above. So, pretty low-scoring game. Lakers win this one. They kind of needed this win after a couple disappointing losses to the Cavs, I believe it was the Knicks, where the Lakers GM was walking around like someone found out his secret identity as a superhero, and he's wondering what he's going to do about it. But, again, let's move on. We got the Bucks facing the Heat. Bucks handled the Heat. God, I keep saying Warriors because I was on the Warriors train for a little bit. But the Bucks have handled the Heat in a worse blowout than the other one, 124-86. Holding a team to 86 points in the NBA today is insane. Giannis, again, didn't have a great game overall, like points-wise. Usually he's in the 30s, but he had 12 points this game. But he made up for it with 10 rebounds, 10 assists for the center in a triple-double performance, fitting for an MVP-like candidate in Giannis. Eric Bledsoe had 17 points himself, and that was pretty good. George Hill off the bench, 7 points. There was a bunch of guys coming off the bench. 13 points for Brown, 10 points for Snell, who had 3 rebounds himself. 11 and 8 for Middleton. And Brook Lopez, 11 points himself. Everyone had double-digit points coming on the starters. All starters had double-digit points. As for the Heat, they had Whiteside with 19 points, 8 rebounds. That was the tied for high. Winslow also had 19 points. And here are the rest of the points from each player. Johnson with 0, Magruder with 4, and Richardson with 6. Those were the other starters. So obviously this didn't go very well for the Heat. That was a pretty devastating loss. Dwayne Wade had 9 points, though. Good for him. But other than that, there was nothing really much to talk about other than the Bucks still look like one of the most elite teams in the NBA. Because even when Giannis doesn't have a 30-point game, they still play extremely well where everyone is contributing. And that's great to see in the NBA. When one guy struggles, the others come up. Oh, he wasn't struggling, but he was very unselfish with 10 assists. That's for sure. For a center, that's impressive. The Hawks. If you believe this, the Atlanta Hawks destroyed. There's a lot of destroying yesterday. Let's say another adjective. The Hawks manhandled. No, that's bad. The Hawks Dwight Schrute. I don't know why I said that. The Hawks just really beat up the Oklahoma City Thunder, 142-126. Trae Young, 24 points, 11 assists, double-double for him. Great game for him, too. Not the only one with 20 or more points. Collins had 26 points himself and 5 rebounds, 2 assists. This was a great game for Trae Young. Even off the bench, there was a 24-point performance by Alex Len, who tied his season high, at 24 points in the Hawks win over the Thunder. As for Westbrook, even though they lost by almost 20 points, he still had a 31-point game, 6 rebounds, 11 assists. Paul George himself had 24 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. He was having a great season himself. 5 steals on the night, as well as Westbrook had 5 steals on the night. So that was very impressive from both those guys. They did all they could. Grant even helped out 21 points. Steven Adams had 16 points himself, 7 rebounds. And then Schroeder had 21 points, but it wasn't enough as the Hawks were just feeling it that night. Moving on to the Suns and the Pacers. Pacers, one of the surprising teams of the East, really outperforming themselves and really doing extremely well. One of the top teams in the East right now, ahead of the 76ers, if I'm not mistaken. And they won this game 131-97. Another big blowout. DeAndre Ayton, the first overall pick in the NBA draft this year with 14 points, 8 rebounds, no assists. Kind of a struggle for him. Kind of the whole season's been a struggle for him. And then you see Devin Booker, who's just been he was on fire not too long ago, only with 27 minutes, only 8 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. For a guy that scores 30, he used to score 30 just on average, it felt like. It was just like every day he was just draining them all. But yeah, he struggled. Victor Oladipo on the other side of the Pacers, who's usually the leader of that team, is the leader of that team, I guess you can say, with 8 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He was 2 of 11 from the field, only 1 of 5 from 3, so he was kind of struggling. But Bogdanovic had 20 points and 5 rebounds and made up for it, as well as Turner with 18 points and Darren Collison with 15 points. So yes, and Tyreek Evans off the bench with 20 points for the Indiana Pacers, former Rookie of the Year himself. And that's just talk about a drop-off. He Rookie of the Year to bench player on the Pacers. Anyways, well, not Pacers, not just in general. But then the final game of the night, we have the 76ers versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Jimmy Butler against his former team. And the 76ers show why they are one of the best teams in the East. As they destroyed, insert other adjective here, to the Minnesota Timberwolves, 149-107. And Embiid we'll see. We'll look at Embiid's stats first before we talk about what he did afterwards. But Embiid with 31 points and 13 rebounds, absolute great performance. Ben Simmons, another good performance by him, 20 points, 11 rebounds. Jimmy Butler against his former team, 19 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. Pretty decent night for him. Ben Simmons almost had a triple-double with 9 assists. So close from that triple-double himself. But Embiid, after the game, kind of tweeted something that was what we kids call a troll to the Minnesota Timberwolves, as he was saying that he was honored to be part of a third stringer, part of the third stringers, and get a win against real NBA starters. Hashtag the process. Embiid is like, people are calling him the troll king. Really hard to deny that because he's really good at trolling. He should be under a bridge. He's trolling so hard. Get it? I'll wait for the laughter. Okay, we're good. Anyways, there was probably no laughter. But anyways, looking into the 76ers season, really looking great overall. Just either they're only fourth in the East, but 29-16 really speaks for itself. Pacers are 29 wins, Milwaukee with 31, and Toronto with 33. And the two of the best records in the NBA are Eastern Conference teams, with the Bucks and Raptors both over 30, and the Golden State in the first place is 30 wins in the West. People say the West is better than the East. I agree. This is just a tougher conference, and that's why they have a little more wins than the others do in the West, because of the fact they kind of play more Eastern Conference teams. I mean, you look right underneath the team with the last team above 500 in the East is the Boston Celtics in the 5th seed with 25-18, and they've lost 3 straight. The other seeded team, the 6th seeded team after the Celtics, are the Heat at 500. Then the Nets, a game under 500, and the Hornets 3 games under 500. So it really shows the differences in strength of schedule when you look at the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference. But again, not taking anything away from the 76ers. Still a great team. Embiid's on a rampage. Jimmy Butler's playing pretty well. Ben Simmons is starting to light it up. Team's looking good. And honestly, there's a lot of opportunities for each of these teams to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I know I said the Bucks. I have the Bucks going to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I still stand by that. But it would not surprise me to see the Pacers in the finals or the Sixers in the finals. Obviously not the Raptors, but the top 4 teams in the NBA, each one of them can go to the finals. Sixers, Pacers, Bucks, Raptors, I totally see it happening. And we're going to take a short break now. I think that's all that happened about yesterday. When we get back, we'll talk about the other news, tips, and other things that have happened in the world of basketball, and we'll be right there right after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. You know, 1 year ago, we experienced the Tunnelgate controversy, and where the Rockets' Chris Paul had a little beef with some Clippers guys, Austin Rivers mostly, and took the Rockets team into a secret tunnel that he knew the Clippers had to their locker room. And got in the locker room, but fortunately security was there to break it up. Obviously, that was all that was there. But one of the things, I just love the fact there's a secret tunnel to the Clippers locker room, like it's Escape from Alcatraz, you know? Like seriously, like that's yeah. But you got to build a secret tunnel. Did you scoop it out with a spoon, just like in the it's like Escape from Alcatraz? It's just really ridiculous when you think about it. In theory, it's like, oh, I want to get at him. All right, guys, follow me. Where are you taking us, Chris? Oh, just a secret tunnel that's in the arena. That's just secret. A secret tunnel, like, where people try to escape prison. I just think it was funny. I personally thought it was hilarious. And is that crossing the line, going through a secret tunnel that you knew? But if you're one of his teammates, the Rockets teammates, and you saw that, wouldn't you be like, why is this here? Why is there a secret tunnel between us, and the other team? Wouldn't that bring suspicion, like they hear your conversations or something like that? Or they listen to your game plan? Like secret tunnel? No one else think of this? I just thought of this just now. That's a good point. Wait a second. Has no one really used that tunnel for evil? As in, they were listening in on conversations in the other opponent's locker room, the Clippers, that is? I never really thought of that until now. That's suspicious. Maybe they should have looked into that a little bit more. But yeah, that was happening a year ago, sometime this year, this time last year. And talking about just, sorry, I'm still laughing at the fact there was a secret secret tunnel that the Clippers had. It's weird. Anyways, looking at the odds for the MVP this season, James Harden and Giannis are both tied at plus 150. Closest to them is the injured LeBron James at 800, plus 800. Stephen Curry's at 1,100, and Kawhi is at 1,200. Now, I get why Giannis and Harden are tied. Harden just broke the record for Kobe Bryant's 30-point consecutive games, and I get that. He's been playing amazing. There's no way of denying that. People think I'm a James Harden hater, but honestly, I sometimes have to look at the devil's advocate version, look at the other side of the spectrum. And he's been playing great. There's no question. And Giannis has been a monster for the Bucks. He's the sole reason why they are at the top of the Eastern Conference, or fighting for the top of the Eastern Conference, that is. And then you look at the other players. LeBron is the only reason that the Lakers are a contender this year, but he's injured, so that's a big factor in them on their downslope. Stephen Curry, obviously, still up there, and Kawhi Leonard just playing the top of his game, not just on the defensive side, but the offensive side, been playing unbelievable. But these odds make sense to me. Plus 150 for both Harden and Giannis. If you just watch the play, you know what I'm talking about. But if I had to put my money on either Harden or Giannis, I'm still putting my money on Giannis. Just on the fact that Harden won the MVP last year. I know people love Curry won back-to-back MVPs, but Giannis and moving the Bucks to where they are now compared to Harden and his, like, when Chris Paul returns, I feel like that's going to put a damper on his MVP candidacy compared to Giannis, because of the fact Giannis doesn't have an all-star point guard giving him the ball. It's a lot of him alone. I mean, he had a triple-double. He had 12 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. He knows how to dish out the ball like anyone else in the league. So that's why I put Giannis a little bit ahead of him, just because the supporting cast is a little bit weaker. I'm not taking anything away from the Rockets. The Rockets are a good team. But the Bucks have a little bit of a weaker supporting cast than the Rockets do when Chris Paul is on the court. And I know he's not on the court now, but the fact remains, Harden can only go at this pace for so long, I think. We talked about this yesterday too. There's only a limit to how much you can put up 57 points, 40 points, 35 points, 38 points, something like that. And I could be wrong, and Harden can just keep this up the entire season, which wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you. But I would definitely consider, I'm putting Giannis just above him, just on the base of the supporting cast, like I said. And it's just one of those things in where that's my personal opinion. You can disagree. Please disagree. That's the beauty of sports. Everyone has their own opinion about sports. And when you're looking at how both they are playing, they're both just dominant. They're both the best they've been. This is by far the best Giannis has ever been. I can even argue say this is the best James Harden's ever been. He had a great season last year. He won MVP for a reason. But I can even compare this one to, I can say he might have a better season than he is last year. It's not too crazy to think about. But I mean, that's basically how that's going to go. But I wonder who you guys got. If you guys want to tell me who you got, please tweet me at Jeff Malinoff. If you don't, that's fine too. But it's JeffMalinoff. But it's one of these things in where the beauty of the MVP voting is whoever gets it deserves it. I don't think there's any question about that. And obviously, when you look at 40-point games from MVPs, in their run of MVP, Harden last year had 11 18-point or 40 or more point games. 11 of them in 2018. He had 40-point or more games in 2018. Already this season, halfway point, he has 14 games with 40 points or more. He already is outpoint himself from last season. That was an MVP-like year. So absolutely, I say he's up there with MVP. If he gets MVP, I'm not complaining about that. If Giannis gets MVP, I'm not complaining about that either. So both these guys deserve it. If we do co-MVPs, I might have to put him in co-MVPs when you look at it. But I still have Giannis just because he hasn't won the MVP yet, and it's, like I said, supporting cast. But the most from any of the MVPs from 2013 to now, who've had 40 or more points in their season of winning the MVP. Russell Westbrook has the most with 18 games in 2017 where he had 40 or more points, which makes total sense. He was 2017, it was just not even fair. And LeBron James in 2013, when he won MVP, he had one game over 40 points. It's really showing It's really showing the progress of players now that this is, like I said before, turning into a scoring league. That's just how I see it. And now that Harden has 17 games with 30-plus points in a row, 13 consecutive games since the ABA-NBA merger in 1976, it's hard to say he's... also on Bleacher Report on Twitter also posted Harden with the egg. You know the egg on Instagram that has 40 million likes already? Beat the Kylie Jenner thing. They put Harden, basically, they had the egg and put Harden's beard on it. and his lips, which is kind of weird. Why put lips on an egg? Whatever. But I thought that was pretty funny. Anyways, I think that is what should do it for this day of basketball podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to tune us in tomorrow, we're doing sports, football, and soccer with Mark. Mark's hopefully going to be returning. If he's not, it'll just be me again, but no worries. And as always, I will see you next time. Have a good day, everybody.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.